بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is episode number 32nd or 32. We're going to deal within the transaction map theory for identifying or locating usury and money for goods. Money for goods is nearly free of usury, but it has some condition. This is the major transaction. We do that every day. We go and buy and sell. When you buy, you take the goods and pay the money. When you sell, you do the opposite. Only the time of payment here is implication or problem. Because we have a limited income, maybe we vary in income, but the majority, when they buy some capital goods, we call it like a car or furniture in the house, which is very expensive, you don't have liquidity, you don't have cash enough to pay. Then you want to buy the goods, but with guarantee of your income, you pay installment. Then you buy something for £5,000, maybe more or less. Buying housing is very important in that area. Buy a house for £200,000-300,000, but you pay installment. I'm not saying mortgage, because mortgage we will treat it as a separate issue. But what we're saying here, because you're buying something highly priced and your income is limited, but you wanted to have a position of the goods and pay installment by the guarantee of your income. Because people need that service, need that transaction, the Sharia allow you to do that. And we call it بيع الآجل. You go find whatever you want to buy, you agree the price. The price has to be fixed, you agree on the price. Then you agree on the amount of the installment. Like, for example, if you buy something for £10,000, you agree you pay each month 500 or 1,000. That's called بيع الآجل, and Sharia allow that in two conditions. The price has to be fixed. Secondly, the repayment time has to be very clear. What is the aim of Musharrah here? To make things very clear. You go and say, I'm going to buy this, £10,000, that's fixed. Pay each month £1,000, good. That's 10 installment. You finish, everybody knows his position. The market will be stable. And that one of the transaction. You take the goods and you pay in installment. The two conditions, the price has to be clear. The repayment period has to be clear. The installment has to be clear as well, but they're both connected. The question here, if you pay cash, the price will be different. And people say, obviously, because the depreciation of the money. And that's why I use the word depreciation, money depreciation here, to criticize the Sharia condition. You say, how can the Sharia condition ask you to make the cash payment exactly the same amount as the installment payment or pay by installment? Because of the devalue of the currency. The answer is very clear and doesn't need arguing. Currency depreciation or devalue the currency is the phenomena of the monetary system. It's a default of the system. It's nothing to do with the agreement. The agreement is right from the economic point, from the monetary point, everything is good for the market. But because we have defaulted money, the money is default. As a result of that default, there is some monetary phenomena we explained before, which is inflation and deflation of the currency and all these phenomena. Then we should not mix it between two of them. Actually, if the currency is fixed and the money is real, the retail and the wholesale would encourage payment in installment. Why? Because they want to sell more, and the competition in the market will encourage the retailer, even the wholesaler, to encourage people to take goods and pay in installment. Because the money supply was fixed, you can't create money anytime, there is no inflation. There is no depreciation of the currency. And I want everybody to think about that. Don't be involved too much of the reality of something wrong and built on that default of the something wrong another conclusion. That's wrong, even in the way of thinking. Intellectually wrong. You have a system which default. Of course, that default will create problem. You have to distinguish between the principle of the agreement and the result of the default. Depreciation of currency, money, monetary default. It's nothing to do with the agreement. This is one side of the agreement between money for goods. The other thing is opposite. You need, which opposite is there, to pay the capital first and have the goods later. We call that bay' salaf. Salaf. As the supplier is borrowing from the purchase. How? If you look at it from the factory's point of view, the factory or the factory owner want to guarantee a supplier, either for food or for material. He go for the people who plant the goods he sell, or for mining the material he used for his factory, he wanted to guarantee a supplier in order to carry on producing all the factory work. And he go and buy earlier. And he is willing to pay the money and make a contract for the supplier to give him the amount they agreed to enter in the contract. Then Bay' al-Salaf is to pay the price earlier and receive the goods later or in installment. Exactly opposite to al-Bay' al-Ajil. Here as well, the same condition. The goods has to be clear, specified, the price has to be clear. Al-Fuqaha was talking about especially foods or planting. Sometimes the food or plant is not very clear. He said, if it's not very clear, wait until the harvest is clear. Then it's a condition now that the harvest is clear. This is in general. Maybe sometimes it's difficult to decide when the harvest is clear. Of course, life is full of factors, elements. This is the job again for the regulator. Again, I'm going to repeat that the privilege for Muslim Ummah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have given them the right to regulate. Not to make a Sharia because Sharia is completed. You can say to make a law, to make a regulation, whatever the word is. But they have the principle. And from that principle, they know the objective of the principle. They should work all day and see how the life changes every single day and try to improve the regulation in order to prevent falling of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prevent, like usually, to prevent any agreement to lead to illegal transaction. Well, this is the main thing in goods for money and money for goods. Without that, there's no much area here for usury. It's rather breaking the rules than usury. Some people go too much and say this is if you break that is usury. No, it is not. Usury is a specific phenomenon, specific rule for usury. But when you say Bay' al-Ajil or Bay' al-Salaf, if you break the condition, you are breaking the condition for that specific agreement. It's nothing to do with usury. Here is we finish or nearly finish the whole transaction maps here. Of course, there is maybe some other transaction want to be clarified or analyzed. If somebody has any question, try to approach me or to send it to me, and I will be happy to look at it and try to give him an answer. When we were talking about Bay' al-Ajil, I delayed the talking about mortgage because some fatwas and say if you buy a house in particular, you need to live in that. And what about, for example, if you want to buy a car or a machine which your life depends on this machine? Would you allow to take mortgage or not? And what is mortgage? Here we have to be very careful Mortgage is not one agreement. Mortgage is a loan agreement. And an insurance agreement. Those two together, the bank normally provide that. Then buy in contract goods for money. What happens is you go to the bank, you say, I want to buy this property and I can't afford it, but I can't afford X amount a month. Would you give me a mortgage? The man go and study. And if he find that, of course, the bank is a profitable entity. He work for profit. He want to make money. He said, okay, we will give you a mortgage. What that mean, give you the mortgage? We will give you a loan. And that loan has an interest. And this is usually, there is no doubt of that. And this is one of the illness, of the symptoms of the usual international monetary system we are living today. I'm not talking about a necessity situation, حالة ضرورة. I'm talking in general. If somebody has made اجتهاد and said this is ضرورة, I'm not touching that at the moment. I'm just trying to explain what is mortgage. The first agreement in the mortgage is money for money with interest is with usury, is usury. I can't say more clearly than that. The insurance is for bank to guarantee you look after the property and the price, you maintain the price of the property. The third thing, you take the loan and pay and buy the property you need by the supervision of the bank. This is the mortgage. If it is some fatwa, allowed for house or not house, this is necessity. It's a part of fiqh. I'm not going, it's more complicated or needs more time than I can cover it here. But we have to distinguish between what is a rule and what is the rule of the necessity. Like, for example, we know eating pork is haram, but you are allowed to eat it in a certain circumstance. That's called necessity. We have to have a clear mind in which way we are looking through. The other issue here, which I would like to say, some people doesn't like that, is the institution of Islamic banking. If you ask me, I've been asked, Islamic banking, neither a bank nor Islam. Very clear, even if you don't like it. It's a huge institution, which a lot of scholars there, and a huge amount of money wasted. But I would say very clear again, Islamic bank, neither bank nor Islam. And I give some example of the people, words through that. But shortly, why is not bank? The main function of bank to create money through usury system. Islamic bank cannot do that. Otherwise, don't call you Islamic. And what is make it worse? Islamic bank using the international money or the money, the fiduciary money, which it is usually. How can you use the material itself is useless or usually, and making out of it something halal? It's like when you say halal whiskey, for example. Whiskey is, when you drink whiskey, you get drunk. And this is the wisdom behind, or the illah behind prohibiting al-khamr. How can you make it halal or say it halal? Then Islamic Bank, again, for the third time, neither banks nor Islamic. One other thing about Islamic banking, there is no such thing called bank, unless very limited with license. There is a banking system, has the central bank and the banks under his authority, or clearing bank, or whatever the name is. Islamic bank is not a system. It's an individual bank, and every bank has a different story, different motive. I wouldn't believe anybody who's saying these Islamic banks come actually to apply the Sharia. And I have quote from the head of Bank of England, and I've been quote Al-Marhum Saleh Kamel. He has the biggest, or one of the biggest trial in Islamic banking, which they have concluded at the end of their experience, that this bank is just a copy of the other bank. I hope I give you the transaction theory, which it opened the mind to understand the transaction, and it helped everybody to identify and locate usually transaction in any transaction. Get any transaction and apply the steps for transaction map theory. You will identify the usually element, and it will give you more understanding why it is prohibited. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.